All right. What's up, everybody? How you doing out there? Welcome back to the show. This is last week's fights, or should I say this week's fights. Of course, we are coming off of a week with no UFC fights. So tonight, we are going to be going over each and every fight from UFC Fight Night, Blanchfield versus Barber, and then taking some questions from you, talking about anything and everything inside of the world of MMA and beyond. And to do all of that with me, the man, the myth, the legend, the Ohio player, new microphone placement for me, same great co-host on the show, Chase Parton. How are you, sir?
Dude, we're fucking living. There was no fights on Saturday, so obviously I'm in a little bit of a piss poor mood because there's not much for me to talk about that I got to see. But going forward, talking about these fights, it should be all right. It should be all right.
All right. Well, hopefully going through this card will pick up your mood a little bit because I do think that there are a couple of pretty good fights on this one. If you are new to the show, we're going to be going over each and every one of the fights on this card, giving our predictions out for it. If you have anything that you want to talk about, you can throw it in the chat, and we're going to have a whole dedicated portion of the show to come back and look through, talk about any of those things that you do that with. So, to start this thing off, this is UFC Fight Night, Blanchfield versus Barber. It's going to be taking place at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. Interesting that they're going with another fight night at the Apex in a row here, considering that this one has a little bit of stakes to it with Barber and with Blanchfield, I would say.
I honestly, I normally am not the one to hate the Apex, but I did have a passing thought today that we've seen a lot of people get cut recently, and those are the Apex material people. I could see the Apex getting phased out a little more than we thought was going to happen, and this is maybe indication of it. It's like they can't even get 15 fights on it, kind of deal. So,
well, I guess that's a good point to start off with as well, is that we did have a pretty big shakeup on this card. A couple of fights got switched up. I know that there was supposed to be Jeremiah Wells was supposed to be fighting Trevin Giles at one point on here. That fight is not going
I
to
don't
take
think
place.
so.
Yeah,
I don't
or
think
not.
that was
What?
no.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, what?
Jeremiah Wells was supposed to fight Andrea Gustafson, I think, and then Trevin Giles stepped in on short
Oh, okay.
notice.
Sorry. Yeah, I knew it was that fight. I guess I got that part of it wrong. But yeah, so Jeremiah Wells was supposed to fight on this card, and I guess going to take on Andreas Gustafsson. But now Trevin Giles is stepping in for that fight. And then the bigger shakeup, of course, was Billy Ray Goff was supposed to be fighting Seokhyun Seokhyun Ko, and Oban Elliott was supposed to be fighting Ramiz Brahimai. Those fights both got canceled, but then two fighters or one fighter from each fight is now fighting each other still on this card, and it is Goff versus Brahimai now.
Yes, absolutely. And then the matchup of the people who pulled out with Ko and Elliott, those now are going to be on the Baku card. We did not get reason why these people pulled out. This could have been strategic by the UFC. Like, well, let's wait a minute. Let's not waste Oban at the Apex. I mean, he has been somebody who can be on cards outside of America. They can be, pay-per-views even. Why not throw him on the Baku card? This is a card for heavy hitters. Let's get everybody on it.
Indeed. I did find out that at least in part, one fight, I don't know about the Elliott and Brahimai fight, but the Goff and Ko fight, there were some visa issues with Ko. So, I
Oh,
mean, that might have been a convenient excuse for the UFC to do what you were saying, at that point. Either way, that some things happen, and then it may be an opportunity for them to redo things and switch it up in that regard. So perhaps there is some bigger strings being pulled in this shakeup that's been going on with this. But either way, still details a little bit sketchy, only because the information has not been fully updated online yet. As of right now, we're going to go with the assumption that the Goff and Brahimai fight is going to happen.
I think first and foremost, before we get started breaking down these cards, since TJ is here giving us some attention very early, you should go ahead and give a shout out to him real quick on where he can watch that commentary from the other night.
Yeah, so I guess now is a time as any. Shout out to TJF. I guess I should mention that over the weekend, as there were no fights, I had the privilege of providing commentary for Real Cage Fighting in Tampa Bay, Florida, doing some live commentary on the fights out there. And if you go to youtube.com/@Yama Show and go to the post section of the page, there is a post on there with the link that you can go to the Patreon and purchase that card. You can watch the commentary that myself and Vith King provided for it. It was a fantastic time. The card itself was really, really good. And I'm not just saying that, I swear. Like, I mean, it's easy to think that because I did the commentary for it, that like, I'm just going to like blow it up and glaze it or whatever. I am being 100% truthful when I say that these fights were really, really entertaining, especially at the level of competition, because these were amateur fights. These guys, it reminded me of a mini version of the Contender Series with how much intensity these fighters were putting into their performances. Like, there were some insanely good performances. Every fight that we saw was like just there, that you could tell how much these fighters wanted to win. And the pace of this event, talk about something that you would have loved, Chase. We were in and out in 4 hours and commented on 16 fights.
That's what I love to hear. I actually would love to hear one more thing, and I think this is only going to make TJF go even quicker to click that link. Did I mistakenly hear that there was a pillow fight in this competition?
Yes, indeed, there was. Pillow fight was one of the highlights of the evening. Two young gentlemen going in there, throwing some pillows around, and I swear to you that it was entertaining as hell. In fact, one of the competitors, I believe, I'm pretty sure, is the son of the promoter, and this kid was showboating all over the place. He was making it quite the showcase in the pillow fighting competition. You could definitely tell that there was some pro wrestling influence on his performance. And in fact, I do believe, shout out to Tim Cage, who is the promoter of Real Cage Fighting and the president of Cage Life Foundation, who put the whole thing together. I believe that Tim Cage also does pro wrestling promotion as well in the States. So I will keep my eyes and ears open for anything in that regard and send that your way, Chase.
Hell yeah. I was about to say, before you said he had the pro wrestling in him, when you said he was the son going crazy, I was like, that's a little Shane O'Mac type of thing right there. Shane McMahon type of style. I like it. So this is cool.
Indeed.
TJ, if you were ever wondering if there was a good time, there it was right there. Make sure you go click that link.
Yeah, I mean, come for all of the fights. Definitely come for the pillow fighting. It was fantastic. But really, again, all of the fights. You had a really nice variety of combat sports on the card. It was kickboxing. Started out with grappling, had kickboxing, boxing, and MMA. So you're getting a wide variety of combat sports. And the performances, especially in the MMA, were really, really great. A couple of fantastic finishes on there. So yeah, if you go to youtube.com/@Yama Show, go to the post section. There's a whole post about it. It's the most recent one. There is a link to the pay-per-view there. Check that out. And all of the proceeds from the event go to the Cage Life Foundation. So it is for a charitable cause as well. So you buy the pay-per-view, you're giving money to a good cause, helping out future fighters of the state of Florida. So thank you very much for
Hell yeah.
asking about that, TJF, and thanks for giving me the time to talk about it there, Chase.
Yeah, not a problem. We always love to hear about the new endeavors being taken place over at last week's fights.
Absolutely, and hopefully this will be the start of a couple more, and I'll be able to tell you about some more coming up in the future. But for right now, the fights that are coming up in the future in the UFC are the ones on this card. Shall we get into these fights?
We shall get into these 10 fights.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had talked about this a little bit off air. I mean, this card now, I mean, I guess with the Goff fight makes it 11, so not as sparse, but this is another kind of quick get in, get out kind of dealy right now with the lack of or the shakeup that has happened. These fights have dropped down in number a little bit, and hopefully this will be kind of another one like I think if I'm not mistaken, last week was or not, the last time that we had fights was also a kind of a quicker card.
Yeah, we had a lot of finishes on that one for that reason, but this one it's going to be quick because it's at the Apex, so the show's just going to be on the tracks. They're going to get these fights going one after another. When we get back from commercial break, they'll already be in the cage, and I don't know. There's potential for some finishes here, but I don't think we're going to get as many as we got in the weeks before.
Perhaps. We always think that, all these cards on paper, it's not going to be that great, blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes they turn out to be absolute bangers.
True.
And last event was pretty goddamn good. So hopefully this one can be something along those lines as well. And starting the evening off, see if this is one of those fights that can be that good. Rayan Dos Santos versus Alice Ardellán. Dos Santos is 14-8, 0-2 in the UFC. Both losses were split decisions, one to Talita Alankar, one to Puja Tomar. Alice Ardellán is 9-7, 0-2 in the UFC. Also, split decision loss to Shauna Bannon, unanimous decision loss to Melissa Martinez. What do you think about this fight?
I think one right off the bat, you could instantly look at it and be like, okay, this is a snoozer. This is not the fight that you should be starting off the card with. But I also said that about the previous cards. Opening fight with the two women of Tisha Pennington and Luana Pinheiro, I believe is what it was. This one I think has potential to be the exact same reason why they would want to open with this, is because they're going to have two people who are kind of dogs that'll go in and slug it out, but there's probably not going to be a finish. Alice Ardellán, I think she impresses me because in her loss, I know it's a lot of people will say like, how can somebody be impressive in their loss? Like we had a discussion about it in the Discord, and it's like you could still see like where the good shines through in a loss. And I think Alice has moments where like you could see talent and you could see like determination, but she's just also going up against people that are somewhat better than her. On the other end, you have Mr. Santos, and losing split decisions. It could go either way. I mean, it is a split decision. But when you look at the one against Puja Tomir, even back in the day, I was the one saying Puja won that fight. Would I have been biased at the time? Probably, because either way, she may have skated by. So I don't know. Looking at the records, it's a little tough to judge this one. They're both 0-2 in the UFC, but I think Alice might have a little more dog in her. I don't know. That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, after watching Ardellán, who I was very skeptical of when she first entered the UFC, considering that she is a Romanian TikTok star, it felt a little bit CM Punky to an extent. Obviously, circumstances much different, but you know how it goes when you've got an influencer and that's their primary thing. It feels like, at least. I mean, she would probably say otherwise, but she's got a very large following on TikTok. Her TikTok material was not something that I thought was really of value. So maybe that colored my vision a little bit. I don't know. I felt like maybe I had a little bit of a preconceived notion about Alice Ardellán when she first entered the organization. But over time, I have come to appreciate the fact that she does go out there and put some effort in. I mean, she'll march forward. Like she definitely
Mhm.
is throwing punches. She's out there trying to win. It's not like she's really going out there just to enhance her brand. She looks like she actually takes the fighting somewhat seriously. So I don't see any reason why this couldn't be the time that she finally gets her win in the organization, and I think that she certainly needs it.
Yeah, I mean, when you have two people that have just not won in the UFC and you match them up against each other, I mean, it really is a coin flip, but you're just basing it off of what you think someone can do better in the slight moments that they couldn't before. Because with a split decision, I mean, it's the little things that you didn't do that lost you the fight. Now, unanimous loss to Melissa Martinez for Alice is probably not the greatest look, but like I said, like you even said, I mean, Alice marches forward. She's ready to go in there and throw her hands. And you said it's not to enhance her brand. I even think the opposite. She looks like a fucking animal. Like, I mean, if she would go in there and try to point fight, okay, there you go. Typical Barbie. She wants to be in the match just to be labeled a fighter. But no, she actually is like about that shit. She'll go in there and get a bloody nose and keep fighting. I respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, on the Dos Santos side, she's a huge favorite in this fight. The current odds on the book that ESPN uses is minus 290 versus Alice Ardellán at a plus 235. So I'm assuming that they're thinking that she's going to try to take this to the ground and that Ardellán's not going to have answers for her on the ground, because on the feet, I would think that they're probably somewhat evenly matched. I would think maybe Ardellán has a slight edge there because she is pretty tenacious. Um, if that's the case, then perhaps Dos Santos might be able to, pull off some leg maneuvers and things like that, make it a little bit of a stickier fight on the ground than Ardellán is going to be able to handle. But I don't know. I mean, I think that it really it's like you said, 0-2 for both of them. It's like it's the opposite of somebody's O's got to go. This is like somebody's one's got to come, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. So I would say listen to Vegas on this one because they probably know a little more than me. But it's a tough. These are two really small women, 5'2" and 5'3". Holy shit! Like
Yeah.
that's that's Andrade level height right there. So interesting. This will be a fun one though. I do think it may be a little warranted to be the opening matchup because the fight coming after is probably going to be pretty boring.
Right on. So I mean, yeah, you know, I'm often the of the mindset of trying to like find the reasons to go for the dogs. You know, I think that's if there's some angle that it makes a lot of sense to go with the dog, then I'm generally going to try to exploit that because uh you know it's great value obviously if it makes a lot of sense. But in this one, I'm kind of leaning towards the same line of thinking that you are, that this might just be one to listen to Vegas on. With both of the split decisions in Dos Santos's previous two, I think that they're probably thinking that those were close enough to warranted, like, oh, she's just been needing to get a little bit better and she's finally going to be able to get over that hump. That sounds logical to me.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to people like this, I don't know. It's like I said, it's the little things that matter. Dos Santos will probably be able to do the little things like get a trip or hold her down for just a minute longer than whatever the case may be. Alice might be one of those people that it comes down to it. Like you got to be able to produce. Doesn't matter how good you look doing it. Doesn't matter how many people think you are the best doing it. You do have to produce the valuable stat of a win. So that's what matters here. And neither of them have been able to prove that they can do that yet, especially in the UFC. So it is, I don't know. You also got to take age into account. Alice Ardayan is a little older, but it's not outside of the realm of like she can still be talented at this age. It's just really a toss up, I think.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with all that. So I guess then, final prediction: who you taking?
I'm gonna take Dos Santos. Probably it sucks to say because I do like my Romanian queen.
True. Yeah, I will as well. Do you think that the loser of this fight gets cut?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right, ask a question, get an answer. I'm with that as well. Honestly, I mean, the only thing I could say to that is that perhaps Ardoyan stays around a little longer, even if she loses, only because she has the buzz. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got to be pretty close. That's another part of why it's unfortunate for her is that a split decision with Shauna Bannon. I mean, at the time at least didn't feel all that impressive, but now Bannon is starting to come into her own a little bit more. So
She did almost get finished by Pooja, but well, mm,
yeah, I guess that's a that's a true statement there too. It's like a lot of factors in that, I guess. But
yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say with Aurelian though is that like I think that the record doesn't necessarily reflect the toughness, and hopefully she's going to be able to let that carry her a little bit in this fight.
Unfortunately, being tough is not what can carry you in this sport. You do have to be able to put all of the aspects together. So being 9-7, I mean, it's for a good reason. There's a reason that you've lost 7 times. So I don't know. It's hard. I mean, but on the other end, DeSantos has lost 8. Like this one is just this is going to be hard on the eyes. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be one of those crazy brawly kind of affairs with a lot of wild stuff going on. Maybe it'll be like two cats in a bag. Hopefully, that'll
Yeah.
be at least entertaining. So, either way, I guess we're both going for Dos Santos, and that's about it on that one, eh?
Hell yeah.
All right, let's move on to Markel Medeiros versus Balaji Oki. Medeiros 10-1, 2 wins in the UFC. Unanimous decision win over Landon Quinones, split decision win over Austin Hubbard. This dude has been taking on the Ultimate Fighter alums a whole bunch there. He had a knockout win on the Contender Series over Isakov. Um, Balaji Oki is 9-2, 1-1 in the UFC. Split decision win over Timmy Kwamba. Submission loss to the Scottish Chris Duncan. He also had a knockout win on the Contender Series over Dylan Salvador. What are you thinking?
Um, This one is very conflicting because initially I want to say, well, Medeiros, we've seen him and he wasn't as impressive as maybe he could have been, especially for like an upcoming prospect. You can definitely see one, he doesn't have that killer. Like, he doesn't have the I'm going to finish a fight type of mentality. He has the I'm going to play the outside mentality. And I will believe that this is going to be a boring matchup that I don't know. They have him as the dog, but with that type of style, I think that works perfectly to get around Oki and just again point fight and dance all the way to decision. But I'm now maybe in the split moment that I'm looking at this, maybe Oki decides to try to brawl with him and he steps in and Madero's in in a in a way that we wouldn't have expected, and I'm going to give him a lot of expectations here. I think if Oki steps in and tries to trade, Madero should be able to counter and drop him. And I think that is it's a lot to put on him. But I mean, if you're a prospect and you're a striker, and if somebody wants to stand with you, a dude who's not really that great on the ground because he's been subbed, so maybe he's not going to be quick to shoot on you. I know you're not going to be the dude to sub him most likely, but in his mind, he's like, okay, let's go back to what we know. We know we knock somebody out in the contender series, and then we get subbed. Let's strike with this next dude. Let's show everybody that that dude is not as good as I am. Maybe Madero's actually pulls out something and gets a drop. So, because actually, for context, I want to give so the reason that I think that this is possible is because I had the same feeling when it came to Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Sherry. Nathaniel Wood is somebody who's known for just pillow hands, not getting any finishes type of deal. But in that case, Morgan Sherry is a type of dude who will stand and try to trade in the pocket. I thought it was very possible that Nathaniel Wood would catch him and drop him, which he did. He didn't finish, but it was almost like in the moment, like they were willing to trade with him. Anybody can get caught. I think this is another example of we maybe expect a decision, but somebody could get caught on the inside here.
Yeah, I think that that's entirely possible. I think that this is going to be a good test of if Medeiros does have that instinct inside, even if it's not like a full-on killer, like, zero in and turn your brain off and just go
Yeah,
kind of kill. It's more like if you are placed in a position where this is what makes sense, do you have the natural fighter's instinct to realize that and capitalize on it? Because if not, I mean, like, he did not show that at all to me in the Austin Hubbard fight. That's really the frame of reference that I'm going off of more so than the Contender Series. I never used the Contender Series, even or than the Landon Quinones fight, because of course Landon was a newer fighter at the time, still a younger fighter. He was just coming in after not having won on the Ultimate Fighter, but getting a shot in the organization. Had a rocky road with that stint in the UFC. I thought that Landon had made some good improvements, but just needed a little bit more. And that doesn't bode very well to me about Medeiros. If it's like, okay, well, if this guy was just a little bit better, he could have gotten that win. Even if it was a unanimous decision. So if you're really going off of the last fight, the Hubbard fight, he was doing a really large amount of evading and evasion maneuvers in that fight. So if he is put into a position where it's like, okay, now is the time and the opportunity is there that you should be striking. It is not a time where retreat is the right or more advantageous thing to do. If he does not have the go attitude and the go mentality, then that's going to say a lot about the type of fighter that he is, period. End of story kind of
right.
thing. So this really is going to be a big test of that in general. And hopefully, if he really wants this, then he's going to tap into what the right thing to do is and actually go for it. On the Oki side, I mean, this dude will throw some hands out there. I mean, that's pretty much how he ended up with the win over Kwamba, even if it was a split decision. He definitely leaves himself open for being submitted. I think that's going to be a big hole in the game, but I don't know if there's any submission threat from Medeiros. So,
Never subbed anybody.
exactly. So I mean, I don't. We need more information to get like the full context here. If like that's even going to be something that you should look out for, this will be a good fight to potentially learn that. But if that's not something that's in the cards at the moment, based on the information that we do have, this is what you're pretty much going to be looking at: is these two guys essentially trying to swing hands at each other, and hopefully both of them are game for that challenge.
Yeah, I think I would like to believe that this fight ends in a knockout and just take inside the distance type of deal, but I can definitely feel a performance where we question if Medeiros should still be in the promotion. Like I can just see it where he's just on the outside, will not engage, will not want to initiate any of the flurries. And it'll be a boring 3-round fight. That's what I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping he decides to sit down and trade for a few exchanges and actually gets the upper hand. But I don't see that happening. Losing to Austin Hubbard basically is not the greatest look.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the concern is that it's like you see like I mean a lot of people, and I think that we said on this show I'd have to go back and re-listen. I didn't have time to do that, but I mean I remember the discussion at least on the watch along being that we didn't think that he won that fight. So I mean it felt like it was a gifted win to begin with. Hubbard was doing a lot better work. He was definitely getting the better of the clinch encounters and positionally moving him around a whole bunch. When he got his hands on him, he was certainly able to hold him. So there was not a lot of positive information to take away from that fight when it came to Medeiros' side. Oki, on the other hand, got subbed very quickly by Chris Duncan, but it was also kind of, I mean, you don't want to say it was a freak sub because it was just a really nice jump gilly that ended up working. That does happen. It's definitely not something that a high level fighter should be encountering. So I guess you could say that that's the strike on the record there. But if that's not something that Medeiros is going to be attempting, or any outlandish submission attempts that catch him off guard, then if this is a straight down the line strike versus strike kind of thing, then Oki has shown me more than Medeiros has. That's where my leaning is going.
This one is going to be interesting. I will say that, but I'm hoping for a finish. That's all I'm saying. I hope Medeiros will actually decide to stand and trade. So that's what I'm going
fair
with.
enough. I mean, I would be cautious with that. I'm going to be taking Oki by decision. So I mean, if you're confident in that as a possibility, then that's certainly something that could happen. I guess we're just gonna have to see if it actually does or not. But so you're gonna as far as actually who's gonna win it though, what's your call?
I'm gonna take Oki by KO.
All right,
I'm gonna
Oki
say
by
he'll get the
KO.
better hand. I mean, he's got 6 knockouts. I mean, he's got 1 sub, but or 5 knockouts maybe. But he's just gonna go out here and obliterate him. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, and that's perfectly fine if that ends up happening. Again, with Medeiros, he's got ground to make up, I would say, based on what we've already seen.
Yeah, for me to come out saying that he's somebody to look out for next week, he has to get a finish here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. All right, well, moving forward then, Kurt Hollabaugh versus Jordan Levitt. Hollabaugh is 22-9. Of course, this is the second run in the UFC post Ultimate Fighter redemption win over Austin Hubbard, who we were just talking about there. He has had a true candy cane record since the tough win. Unanimous decision loss to Trey Ogden. Unanimous decision win over Kanan Kraszewski. Unanimous decision loss to Alexander Hernandez, even though that was a slightly questionable one. Jordan Levitt is 11-3, 3-2 in his last 5, with wins over Matt Sales, Trey Ogden, and Victor Martinez. Losses to Paddy Pimblett and Chase Hooper.
I think this one might be a little more cut and dry than people want to give it credit to, because you guys got to remember, Kurt Hollabaugh is probably one of the worst when it comes to ground game. Like, he has lay on your back and hope for the best. Like, that's what's in his bag when it comes to going to the ground. And that is taking away from how good of a striker he is, because when it is on the feet, he actually is impressive. For a dude who looks like Forrest Griffin and looks like an old man he is very dicey on the feet. Like, I will give him that. But Jordan Levitt seems like the type of person that'll be able to just slip a punch and just tackle him, and then it's straight to the ground and probably a submission. I feel like Jordan will be the type of dude to get the submission because he sees how many times people lay on top of Kurt and do nothing with it. So
yeah.
I think this one will be easy.
No, I mean, Hollabaugh looks like Forrest Griffin and has the old man stats because, I mean, he's been around for a million years. This dude, keep in mind that his first fight was on the very last Pride card. So this dude has been fighting forever. I mean, 38 years old as well. That's
Nice.
another factor in this, of course. Jordan Levitt, 29 years old. But for a dude at an advanced age in this sport, he does still have very nice hands. He's got that strength that you were talking about there. So could he lay some shots on that catch Levitt off guard? Perhaps. I mean, it's not out of the question, but he also doesn't generally have crazy knockout power, which is unfortunate. He's got good hard volume power, I guess, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's
He's kind of like Alex Morono. That's exactly who's a good
yeah,
comparison for him.
I'd say that is exactly right. It's like it's solid output. It's consistent. It's definitely like meaty. It's not like he's not putting anything behind it, but like it's just not that shot that's going to be the one to drop and finish his opponent. Um, yeah,
It is kind of funny to note too. I compare him to Alex Morono, and like they do kind of have a similar striking style. And when you look at it and you talk about the power, it's like, well, when you look at traditional boxing technique, is like they tell you got to turn the shoulder, you got to get the power from the hips. But these guys just have a straightforward, pity patter kind of style. So there's no power getting generated from like other
sure.
extremities, I guess is the better way to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
it.
I know what you mean. Yeah, and the thing with Kurt too, like you were saying about the ground game just being non-existent, it is crazy to me that he was able to fight and defeat Jordan Knight on The Ultimate Fighter, considering how good Knight is in his submission game. But so I say that only to say that like it's not out of the question that Hollabaugh can thwart ground attacks and or he can keep himself upright or get back to his feet occasionally with people, or be able to overwhelm his opponent early enough in the fight that getting to the ground is not going to be something that they're able to do against him. But when it comes to Jordan Levitt, I mean, the losses that he's taken, Paddy Pimblett and Chase Hooper, I mean, those both age extremely well. And he's one of those guys that I think there's a little bit of a like an atmosphere that he's cultivated for himself, being a little bit flamboyant and yeah,
Zesty.
exactly. That's certainly a word that has been applied to him in the past. So I think that people don't consider him that big of a threat when really he is. I mean, he's definitely a great submission
Mhm.
guy. Just he's one of those dudes that he might not be at the elite levels, but like against a Kurt Hollabaugh, he should certainly be able to get his game plan off.
Yeah, a 38-year-old Kurt Hollabaugh who, in his heyday, didn't have the ground game that was needed to defeat Jordan. And now you're talking about somebody who's years down the line past where they should be to compete with Jordan Levitt on the ground. And I think Jordan will definitely take it to the ground, rack up control time. I'm hoping for a sub, but Kurt, I don't think I've seen Kurt subbed by many people, at least in the time that I've been watching it. And so maybe that does stand that he just got the defense that doesn't quit. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, I mean, Kurt will be able to hold his like he's in that category. I mean, obviously, completely different set of circumstances and reasoning, but like it reminds me a little bit of what we were talking about with Aldo before Aldo's retirement fight. That would end up happening just recently, where it's like he is old dog with new tricks are just not going to be a part of the game plan there. And we said that about Aldo being able to be
yeah.
held up against the cage, and with Kurt, it's like yeah, he'll be able to do all of the things that he's already done well, but that's the extent of it. Like I wouldn't expect any kind of like, man, oh,
Mhm.
Kurt really figured it out now. I think that what you're getting with Kurt Hollabaugh is like a solid fighter, well-rounded enough to make the fights interesting, but it's always going to be kind of one way or the other. And his record reflects that, true candy cane.
I think Jordan Levitt is in the perfect position that he's proven himself to be a good stepping stone for the people who are actually good at grappling. Your Chase Hooper, your Paddy Pimblets. But then Kurt Hollabaugh just fits in with those other names that Jordan Levitt has beaten. So we just need to get Jordan another W, get him in the win column. So when we have our next grappling prospect that we're trying to test the waters on, Jordan will be the
That
guy.
might be one of the most wise assessments I have ever heard in my life because yeah, I think that you're 10,000% on point with that. Levitt is a dude, and I think on the other side of the coin of what we were just talking about with Hollabaugh, Levitt is a dude who might be able to pull out some new interesting things. He might be able to level up his game. I mean, he's only 29. I mean, he's just coming right into the sweet spot there where he should be starting to hit his stride for real. So there is potential that maybe he shakes that the dynamics that you just outlined there in going forward. But this isn't necessarily the fight that you see that in. Like, he's going to have to get this fight, get this win. Next time that there's a person like Chase described there, that's going to be the time where you're really going to see whether or not Levitt can break past the confines of what you just outlined.
Yeah, and I think Jordan Levitt is also one in the perfect position for what I just outlined, but he's also the perfect type of fighter that, it tees up a superstar because of the way that his personality and the character that he is. This is perfect for somebody like Chase Hooper to have like a very, fun matchup with kind of deal. This is perfect for Patty Pimblett to have beef with and twerk on him at the end of the fight, things like that. Like, this is perfect for this is a perfect stepping stone type of fighter for whatever you have coming for you. If it's somebody who wants to trash talk, Jordan Levitt is like aimed right at the barrel of the gun, whatever you want to say. If it's somebody who just wants, Jordan Levitt is the perfect person. It's like, well, I'm not going to let the zesty guy who does splits after wins, I'm not going to let him beat me, of course. Like, I don't know. I think this is a good type of fighter to have.
Yeah, you just reminded me. This is probably a little bit before your time, but there was a video game called Mike Tyson's Punch Out, and you were a character who was going out there and making his way in the boxing world, and you'd have these like characters that you'd be fighting against. Yeah, Jordan Levitt reminds me a little bit of like, obviously not as poor of a fighter, but like a Glass Joe or like a Soda Popinski. Like, he's like a character in that way. So
Yeah.
I think the comparison makes sense. So yeah, the next little Mac out there going up against Jordan Levitt, it could end up being a stepping stone, but I don't want to box him in that 100%. Like, I want to believe that Levitt can maybe improve his striking a little bit more, because I do think that's an area that he does need improvement in. I think that there may be a little bit more than we're giving him credit for just now, than him being like the stepping stone forever. I want to think that that's a possibility.
I don't know, because some people and some people do break this stereotype that I'm about to lay out for you, but some people you could just see that like the championship would fit them. Like, they would look like Diego Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
Look, he would look good with a championship belt on. Ilia Topuria. Championship just looks like it's made for him type of deal. People like that. But like Jordan Levitt, never in a million years can I sit here and envision this dude taking home the belt. So that should just give you extra fuel. But I'm just saying, it's like this is not the dude that I'm sitting here thinking like he needs that one more opportunity. Give him the next star that you think is just that good, and when he smokes him, there's the title run. I'm just not saying that about Jordan Levitt.
Well, when Jordan Levitt or Ryan Hall or one of the 8 million other guys that I can think of that fit the description, like you said, of a dude who you could never in a million years imagine having gold around their waist, when they get it, I'm going to remember this conversation.
Well, I would say Bilal fits that stereotype. And Bilal actually, I would never say, oh yeah, Bilal, he deserves, he's going to be champ one day. Like, I can see it. Like, I can see it right here. Like, I wouldn't have been that way. Jordan Levitt is the same type of example. Like,
all right. So yeah, I guess, so you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's a chance, guys. If he might surprise, 11-3, like you said, if he somehow gets the striking together, and if he puts on a performance like Meli Costa did and shows you that the striking is now improved, I'll be a believer. But until I see something like that, we'll see. Kurt Holla was not the opponent that I'm ever going to be like, championship is due now, boys. So.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, all that being said, then, who you going with?
I'm taking Jordan Levitt by sub. I want him to finish Kurt.
All right, I'm going to take him by decision. I think it's going to be another one where Kurt does just enough of the right things to not let himself get defeated or stopped, but is going to be roundly, overcome for the majority of at least 2 rounds.
You don't always, but you brought it up recently with Jose Aldo. Is like when you hear fighters who are 1 foot out the door type of deal, it's hard to put trust in them. Do you believe Kurt Hollaba is on his way out the door soon?
That's a good
Mentally.
question. Yeah, I want to say no, only because Kurt strikes me as the type of guy that I don't want to say he's like a Tony Ferguson where he doesn't know when to quit, but he strikes me as the type of guy that is going to continue fighting a little bit farther than is the right time to quit. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say that he's like checked out If he starts to go on a massive losing streak, then it'll probably become a lot more apparent. But like a candy cane, win loss kind of thing, I think that he's just sort of resigned to that at this point. Would be my suspicion, at least, because he is just one of those workhorse kind of guys. Like he went back on the Ultimate Fighter to get back into the UFC to have a record and a career like this is the way that I sort of look at it. Like, he is a fighter. That is what he does. It's a little bit less skilled perhaps, but he reminds me a little bit of like a Jim Miller in that regard, where it's just like, this dude goes out there, he's going to fight, and that's going to be it.
I think also what to note in comparison to somebody like Jose Aldo is like Kurt Hollabaugh doesn't leave his fights on his deathbed. Jose Aldo in his last fight looked like fucking shit when he retired. Like, I would retire too if my face was cut open and my the other half was all morphed and shit. Yeah, it probably didn't look fun. But Kurt, yeah, I mean, he's gonna leave this fight without a scratch on him. Probably get subbed and just be ready for the next one. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, and that's also why I'm going unanimous decision loss, because I just think that he's skilled enough to not let himself get submitted entirely, but it's going to just be a whole lot of, okay, I got to get out of this position, now I'm in this one, now I got to get out of this one, now I'm back on my feet, oh, I'm back on the ground. It's one of those types of deals where it's just going to be kind of a whole lot of rolling around and a whole lot of close calls. What I'm seeing.
Yeah, another day at the office for Kurt laying on his back. So
yeah, unfortunately so. So yep, I will also take Jordan Levitt and take him by UD.
I would like to point out, guys, that this should show you how unbiased and how much we don't care about the personality and the characters that you portray in the cage. Jordan Levitt gets a lot of hate probably for the person that he portrays himself in the cage for. I can imagine there's a lot of people who don't like him because he's the guy who does splits and twerks, whatever you want to say. But you should just know that unbiased, unfiltered over here, we are going with Jordan Levitt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always unbiased. And I mean, I like Kurt. I mean, the fact that he has been around for as long as he has and has been, at least good enough to be in the position that he's in. He's gone through a lot, having to come back and redeem himself on the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, it shows a tenacity that I respect greatly. He's also a family man. I mean, there's a lot of good things about Kurt. So I mean, on the flip side, I definitely have a great deal of respect for all of these guys, and you just got to look at it objectively as to what's actually going to happen inside of the cage. And we're going to talk about a fighter coming up here right now, actually, who there's a conversation going on around him outside of the cage, and we'll we'll see if it how and if it affects anything, but we're going to still look at it objectively.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because we should definitely get into this topic, at least shed some light on it, because we still don't know the entirety of the situation. But I mean, is there really more you need to know, kind of deal? Well, so let's start. Go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll intro these guys, and we'll get into all of that. So this is Trevin Giles versus Andreas Gustafsson. Jesus Christ. Trevin Giles versus Andreas Gustafsson. Wow. Why am I having problems? Did you need one more time? Trevin Giles, Andreas Gustafsson. I think I would know how to say Gustafsson with our fantastic Alexander Gustafsson for so many years. But anyway, Giles versus Gustafsson. Trevin Giles is 16-7, 2-3 in his last 5 on a 3-fight losing streak. His losses are to Mike Malott, Carlos Prates, and Gabriel Bonfim. His wins are over Preston Parsons and Louis Cosi. Gustafsson is 11-2, making his UFC debut after clinch elbows knocked out Pat Pitlick on the Contender Series. Looked really, really good in that performance there. What do you think about the fight?
The fight itself is going to be very, very interesting because, man, is this Andreas Gustafsson dude something to behold. He has a fighting style that is not necessarily relative to a single martial art as it seems. I mean, it is, yes, but the way that he just walks in and just spams elbows and knees in the clinch is like straight out of the UFC video game. You go to multiplayer and you pick the cheesiest technique and this dude is just doing it. Like, I don't know how to explain it because it's not dirty boxing. It's just straight up tie clinching. Like, that's just 100% what his game is. And it is very impressive. I will say it is impressive that he's able to just walk down and just spam these moves, and they're devastating. And I always wonder why people don't do it more. Like you can smash with your forearm, you can smash people's heads with your elbows, and this dude, he knows exactly how to do it. And I'm a big fan, inside the cage, that is, because this guy, and I want to bring it up that it is very interesting how we came upon this information, because this has not been something that is public to many people apparently, because there's only one small article on Reddit that's talking about all these tattoos and symbolisms in sports or something. That's at least how I was getting it, from the screenshot that our fellow friend Bloomis was sending. And it was a picture of Mr. Andreas Gustafsson with a tattoo that was very reminiscent of some anti-Semitic things, and it is now covered up. So I don't know when this was. I don't know how long ago it was. I don't know who got the picture of him, why he was posting it around like this. What was the timeline that he got it covered up in his life? Was he reformed? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, at one point, this dude had some interesting cultures that he aligned with and morals. I would just like to
Yeah.
keep that on the plate there.
Right. Yeah. So Andreas Gustafsson, we were shown a Reddit post, Reddit thread from Bloomis, as Chase has been outlining here, that it showed that, yeah, Gustafsson had some tattoos, which would lead one to believe his support was aligning with, the old guard of Germany, so to speak.
Hmm.
And,
Nice.
it's certainly concerning. We've had other fighters who have made their way into the higher levels of the sport with ones that were still there. So at least in Gustafsson's case, some of the ones that were more evocative of that imagery, the eagle, I think, is the one that sticks out the most. They had been altered and covered up a little bit. So it could lead one to believe that he thought one way in the past and maybe changed his way of thinking. Perhaps that's one way to look at it. I think that in the discussion we were having, Chase brought up a good point that, it could have just been the fact that once you get onto a larger stage, larger amount of eyes on you in life, that just doesn't fly regardless of what you actually believe inside. So that's another thing that could be the truth about it. It's a little bit hard to say. And the reason that I haven't done too much deeper diving into it is because there's just the one Reddit post about it. And a lot of people say a lot of things on Reddit, and a lot of people read a lot of things into symbols and other stuff that may not actually be there. I mean, we've seen plenty of dudes. God, his name is escaping me now,
Petrosky.
but oh well, yeah, with the hammer and the sickle. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, that's maybe a little bit less of it. But no, the one that was sticking out to me is the Irish dude with all of the Indian ink. I forget what his
Reese
name is.
McKee.
It is Reese McKee, I believe. Yeah, isn't he have he's got all the black and whites, right? I mean, he's pretty much all Indian ink, and some of the ones on there, like, they look like they could be questionable. I think I made that joke about it, on the watch along at some point in the past. I think he was fighting Kennedy and Chezuku or somebody along those lines. Something like that. I don't. Maybe it wasn't him, but or Chidi and Jukwani, it might have been. But either
That
way,
makes more sense.
yeah, I think it was that fight. Well, I was saying, the tattoos are like, Nazi adjacent is what I wanted to like. I think I had said it was, and I was joking about that, of course. But like, my point in bringing that up is that people get tattoos that sometimes look hard. You know what I mean? You can't deny that the eagle looks cool. There's some of the Nazi stuff
Listen.
looks cool. I don't know.
I thought it also might have been a possibility. This is a young guy. Maybe he's just in a rough part of town. He goes into a tattoo parlor, and that's just one of the stock photos on the wall. Like, I mean, he's I don't fucking know. He's just like, oh, that's a cool bird right there. I'll get that, like, right on my chest. And like, the tattoo artist is probably like, yeah, this guy's fucking metal, And he's just sitting there thinking, man, I'm getting a sick bird on my chest. And the fucking tattoo artist is like, this dude's down for the cause, man. So eventually he probably realized, like, oh, people look at me and I do give off the vibes of a skinhead. So I should probably get this one covered up. And I do believe it probably is like a secrecy kind of thing. It's like, oh, I can't wear this publicly now because I'm trying to actually have a life and, a career, but I may or may not want to kill Trevin Giles. I don't know. Like, who knows?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that like until we get more actual concrete information that can confirm or deny this, like I really don't want to like over speculate too much because that's not something that you want to just apply to someone if it's not the truth. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't want to be saying this stuff about him, but what? Go ahead, Chase.
I know. No, I mean, I don't want to imply it either, but I do think it is just very interesting that the one picture that we've seen, it's and like the place that it would be if you were a normal citizen, you go to work with a shirt on. Nobody's ever going to see that you have a Nazi eagle on your chest. Then you realize, oh, I might become a firefighter and not an electrician. Okay, well, maybe we should get this shit covered up because I have to work without a shirt on. Like, I don't know. I think he also, I kind of still believe that he's kind of into it. And and I am kind of laughing about it, but I think it adds to the mystique a little bit. If he kind of is low key still into it, I mean, I'm not with it, but I think that makes it better than he's like, oh, I was wrong, guys. Like and one time in my life I felt that way, but now I'm a new man. Like, you live up to how you feel. I don't know. That's the way
Yeah,
that I think about it.
say it with your chest, quite literally in this
Play.
case, right?
Yeah. Like play. I mean, listen. I know covering up the tattoo is probably the way to go because like that's movie villain type thing. Oh my god, he's coming in with swastikas tattooed on him. Like. But in a real sense, if he still does believe that whatever he wants to do, he's probably a piece of shit for it. But it doesn't also help if he is reformed that he continues looking like a skinhead. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Again, obviously, I do find it concerning if that is his true feelings about things. But either which way, until I get a little bit more concrete evidence one way or another, I'm just gonna have to kind of keep that information filed away in my brain. And what do you even really do with it when all that we're going off of is what he's going to be doing in the cage? And as of right now, I mean, if we're really going for the predictions on this fight, I mean, what we saw from him in that previous fight was fantastic. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
I remember, the reason that we both were like aware that he was going to be on this card and we're like, kind of like, oh, it's finally Gustafsson time. You know what I mean? Like we were kind of hyping this a little bit because of how impressive his knockout on the Contender Series was. And it's not only because it was a knockout. Plenty of people get knockouts on the Contender Series. It was the method of knockout and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
he was willing to be in the clinch, throwing the elbows that we all like want to see. I mean, the closest I can think of recently to what he did on the Contender Series was Taliesin Teixeira versus one of the Taffa
He
brothers.
just fucking they smashed Taffa's face in just instantly. Yeah.
Exactly. Just
Yep.
bam, bam, bam with the elbows straight to the nose. I mean, this is essentially, I mean, I think that Gustafsson might have been to the side of the head, but close range elbows, bang, bang, bang. And it was effective as hell.
I think Cheaty does a very good job of it as well. Cheaty Bang Bang. Yeah, he's very good with the elbows and the clinch and the knees and just making it real uncomfortable. On all like I just can't tell you how frustrating it can be when you see something so effective. You see somebody knee somebody in the sternum and you're like, that looked like it fucking hurt. It looks like it fucking hurt him too. And then you see somebody get elbowed in the face and they clearly don't like it. But then you continue to see fights back to back where you get clinches and people are punching each other in the thigh and eating each other in the thigh. It's like, yo, I've seen fights get ended if you just raise your knee 2 inches higher. If you just instead of punch him in the thigh, you punch him in the stomach or the face. I know you have to switch it up, and I know you can't obviously do the same thing every time, but I'm telling you, punching to the thigh specifically, cut it out. We need to get rid of that. That's crazy.
Your feelings about the thigh punches are well documented at this point. So if we ever see thigh punches out there, just know people, Chase is coming for you.
I think if Andreas Gustafsson pulls a thigh punch, I will be so mad at the current state of the UFC PI and what they are training in that fucking institute. Because if this dude shows up and everything part of his game that I loved is gone and he turns into fucking Marab, I will be sick. I will be sick.
I'm saying
Actually,
honestly that, yeah.
Actually, and especially because of what the circumstances are leading me to believe that this dude may or may not have a potential grudge against his new opponent. He better come out here and finish like he means it.
Well, and so okay, so I mean, I guess that all of the what we had talked about with his socio-political leanings aside, I mean, when it comes to this fight with Trevin Giles, I mean, based on what we have seen from Giles, I want to talk about Trevin Giles a little bit here. What we've seen from Giles has been just it really not enough.
Ass.
It really exact. I mean, that's I try to be a little bit more polite about it, but if you want to be real, I mean, like he has just been a, a step and a half behind in all of the fights that I listed out there as his most recent losses. That's why he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Now, a loss to Carlos Prates, obviously we know where Prates had ended up. Maybe now might be a little bit shakier, but the trajectory that he was on, fine. But Mike Malott, I always go back to that fight and the absolute fucking. It reminded me of like tournament style point fighting is what they were doing in that fight, and that was what led me to believe that Malott was not going to win his last one. Wrong prediction there, but the criticism of Giles still remains. Did not win that fight, and if it's going to just be a point fighty affair, then maybe he comes out in somewhere in the middle. But like, you don't think that Gustafsson is going to be playing that game? I certainly don't. I would think that Gustafsson can come out here and just brute force his way into a nice win over Giles.
I would like you to take a look at some facts here and let me know if you think Andreas Gustafsson fits the build here.
Yeah.
This is a guy who got knocked out by Dricus du Plessis on his second fight in the UFC. This is a guy who got finished by Carlos Prates on his debut. Is Andreas Gustafsson among one of those people that can finish this guy stepping into the organization? I think very, very likely.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp there. I mean, Gustafsson, and it's hard to say because I literally earlier in this very stream said, oh, I don't put too much stock into the Contender Series fights, and to an extent, I think that is applicable. But like, I think that if you go back and look at the dynamics of that fight, it wasn't the same as like your standard Contender Series fair. Like it was like he looked and acted in a way that was like, I can do this on any stage that you put me on.
I think here's something key to note, and I'm double checking as I say it. So if you notice that these are at 170 is what the fight, it's a catch weight, of course, 170. I
Right.
don't think Gustafsson was competing at 170 because surely he's way too large. Yeah, no, welterweight, he was 170. Holy shit. This dude's very large. I was going to say without having that extra cut on his body, because he's only going to have to, cut half of it in theory. If he's going to make the catch weight, maybe he just walks in at whatever his weight is now. I think he's going to look massive in this one because he already does look huge, and especially at welterweight, I thought he was an 85er for sure. But this is going to be nuts. I also would like to make a note that this was Andreas Gustafsson. This was not his first attempt to make his debut. If you remember earlier, maybe it was late last year, he was supposed to debut in Tampa, I believe is what it was, and he broke his neck. So
Oh
that could be
gosh,
something to keep an eye out for.
I forgot all about that. Good call on that one. Yes, you are correct about that. Yeah, so I that does add a little bit of another dynamic, doesn't it? Obviously, I would suspect at least that at the time we had been talking about it, saying, "Oh, hopefully it's just some very minor thing, more of a tweak than anything else."
A
Obviously,
fracture,
yeah,
stress
right.
fracture or something.
Exactly. Something that wasn't going to be, I mean, a neck break. Obviously, you hear that, it's like your brain just starts racing with what it could be.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that this would lead you to believe that it was something somewhat minor, but I mean, a neck break is, remember, Brian Kelleher, who was out with that neck break
Yeah.
for so long, came back, not the same.
Yeah. So this one could be interesting. He might be a little more, timid in the matchup. He may not try to get all rugged because maybe he's just unsure of what he's capable of doing now with his new body, so to speak.
Well,
Whatever the recovery looked like, of course.
whatever the case may be, if there was ever an opponent that you would have like an opportunity to either spread your wings or not with, I would think that Giles is probably a good one for that because you're going to get a lot of runway, a lot of real estate to do what you want to do, considering that Giles is probably going to be throwing out some pretty weak shots, some pretty pointy stuff from the outside. I mean, if you can go in there and muscle and have the wherewithal and are confident in your ability to move forward, then I think Giles is somebody that you can back down pretty easily.
Well, I think you're also making a case for why this is the perfect matchup for Gustafsson to maybe lose on his debut. Now, Trevin Giles is not great, but if he was able to play an outsidey point match against Mike Malott, give him a dude that can only reach and grab. I mean, he might be able to just stick him from the outside for 3 rounds. This dude, Andreas Gustafsson, did not showcase a single lick of striking that I remember. It was literally just the Homer Simpson strangle emote. Like, that's basically everything that he did. And so it could get interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all right. So all of that being said, I mean, there's a lot of factors in this one. Obviously, we've gone at length about this fight. So with all of that information swirling around in your brain, what is your final prediction?
I'm going to take this fight to end in the first round by Andreas Gustafsson's knees and elbows for sure.
Let's go. Yeah, I gotta go with Gustafsson as well. I mean, just based on the intensity of what we did see from him, if he can replicate, even if he can replicate a percentage of that, I think it's still going to be enough for him to overpower and get his way with Giles. That's where my gut's
I,
telling me.
I think what's so interesting about Andreas Gustafsson is that when you see him fight, you see it just looks different to you. This is not a cookie cutter matchup. Like, this is somebody who fights different. And those are always people to keep an eye on, because the unorthodox, they can get really far if they do it right. But then also it just takes that one technical person that can, dismember what they're doing. But I think Andreas Gustafsson, as of right now, probably has the key to some very fun wins starting off. So,
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, a lot of times I don't put a ton of stock into the Contender Series wins, but with this one, it just felt different, and that's what
mhm.
I'm gonna leave it at that. Really, I mean, like, yeah, call it an informed guess, as to what we're expecting in this one. Because of that, it could go a lot of different ways, but based on what I saw, I always talk about that little tinge in the back of the head where it's
Mhm.
like, that's something to keep an eye out for. I got that with him. It felt different in the moment on the Contender Series. So if you can carry that over, could be some fireworks.
100%.
All right. Moving on down the line, Ketlin Vieira versus Macy Chiasson. Vieira is 14-4, 3-2 in her last 5. Wins over Penny Kianzat, Holly Holm, and Misha Tate. Losses to Raquel Pennington and Kayla Harrison, both aged pretty well. Chiasson is 11-3, 3-2 in her last 5. Wins over Myra Bueno Silva, Penny Kianzat as well, and Norma Dumont. Losses to Irene Aldana and Raquel Pennington. Chiasson has been around for a while. I forgot this, but she is the winner of the Ultimate Fighter 28. So Chiasson has been doing her thing for a little minute, even if it doesn't always feel like she's been super active.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the first thing that stuck out to me, is that the fact that the last time she fought was almost a year ago. She got a doctor stoppage finish on MBS, and that should have that should have been the propulsion she needed to get another fight and get her name in the like, this fight right here could have happened way long ago. I know, Caitlin was, doing her thing with Kayla, but Kayla also wasn't necessarily the most active. Like, there was definitely time in between where you could have lapped somebody. I know that the UFC, they had it destined that Kayla was going to come in and get the title shot, but like, Macy is somebody who you don't really think about. And as of right now, you can see that she's about to become the third ranked person if she wins this, and it's not somebody who's on your radar. Now, Ketlin is somebody who, just like MBS, I would love to believe that they are as good as their record or their placement in the division would have shown. I watched them at the time that they were fighting for or close to the belt. So surely that must mean they're great. MBS, though, goes in there, gets smothered by Rocky Pennington for 5 rounds, and then she comes out and gets finished by Macy Chase on doctor stoppage from one elbow. And it was a questionable call, good call, whatever you want to say. But the fact of the matter is, Macy could have been fucking fighting. Ketlin might not be as good as I think she should be. And Macy's also one of these new age talents that's just very good at everything and just makes things interesting. Like, if she'll cut you with an elbow, or she'll get a ninja choke, or, things like that. Very, very good from Macy. I want to believe in her, um, just for the fact that I would hope to think that I would know better by now that Caitlyn is probably just not that bitch. So,
Yeah, I think that the way that you described it, where it's like Macy has been kind of bubbling beneath the surface for a little while, that's going to start to change with a fight like this if she gets the win, I would hope. Because I've
mhm,
been a fan of Macy Chiasson for quite a while. I think that she is like kind of a diamond in the rough in a lot of ways. Like, I think that she's a lot more skilled than her activity level would lead one to believe. Like, that's the real big note. Is like you let off with, it's like she's kind of just not out a lot for some reason. She's not there a lot. And it's just like, you've been doing some really great work. You need to capitalize on your momentum. Hopefully, she starts building up a more frequent base of fighting and can, live up to the potential position that she will be inhabiting at the
mhm.
upper part of the division if she gets this win. Because other than that, I mean, really, like you're nailing it with the way that you described it. I mean, she is a very well-rounded fighter. She's very tough too. I've always like thought that she has a really like gritty, in-your-face style, especially for the women. I mean, like, a lot of times with the women, you get a lot of very technical grapplers, but like Jason, she'll grapple with you for sure if you want to go that route. But if not, she'll be throwing elbows in your face. So I mean,
Mhm.
she's definitely a to me a bigger and better talent than like her current position and status would lead one to believe. And I would like to see her fully inhabit that. I want her to be that because I think she has the potential to be that. So, win like this over someone like Caitlin Vera, who's been very, very close to the top, that certainly can do it. And then all she has to do after that is really be about it.
I think Macy is in an interesting predicament because she's somebody like we said, she skates under the radar. She's not necessarily calling her shots as well as she could be, but she's also in a division where it's locked up. You know, we got Pena and Harrison, and we know for fact Nunez is coming back. So where does Macy fit into that equation? Maybe it was in her best interest not to run up a bunch of fights that mean nothing because then you're not going to have fights. You're just going to be stuck waiting for the opportunity to go fight for the belt. But this is somebody who we could see slip into a title position as an early defense for, say, if Kayla Harrison wins, this could be her first defense because Amanda Nunez isn't coming back just yet. You know, whatever the case may be. Nunez may not come back that immediate fight after if Pena wins. Boom, Macy Chiasson just gets slid right in there as a filler. So,
Yeah, well, and I mean, when it comes to the Vieira side of things, if you look back on the most recent five, I had said a win over win over Pani Kanzat, Holly Holm, and Misha Tate. Like those wins, Holly Holm on the end of her career, Misha Tate close to the end of her career, Pani Kanzat not really a
who
factor.
even is this girl? Am I supposed to know who Penny is?
She's been released. Her and
Okay.
Jason actually had like a pretty big back and forth for a little while there. Pani Kanzat actually landed a liver shot on Jason that ended up being the finishing of their fight, and then they ran it back, and then Jason won the run back. And I believe that Kanzat was Jason's opponent on the Ultimate Fighter finale as well. So they had like a little bit of a rivalry going there for a while, I believe. I'd have to double check that part of it, but
Hmm.
either way, yeah, Kanzat is she's out. So I mean, I think she was kind of a never really was sort of thing
Hmm.
in the promotion, but just happens to be one of the ones that both of them fought. Either way, though, so I mean, those wins. Not the greatest wins. The losses, yeah, I mean they are like they do age well, former champion now, and Kayla Harrison, who's going to be challenging for the belt and all that. But I say all of that to say that Chieson, with a win here, slides herself right into the position to be part of that more elite conversation because all of the factors when it comes to the Vieira side, like they're starting to show themselves like for what they really are, I would say. Fighting and beating Holly Holm at the end of the career, Misha Tate close to the end of the career, Kanzat, who's not really that very impressive. Like she's sort of been propped up by a couple of wins that maybe weren't all that. I think that Jason getting her taken care of puts her in a really firm position to then prove, okay, you've gotten through like that. I talk about those gates, right? I mean, this is like the gate to the elite status. Can you hang with the elite? That's the question thereafter.
I think there's always going to be question for Macy if she can hang with the big dogs, because when you look at the people who are around her in the division, these are people who have been here or been around. Kayla Harrison excluded, she's been around somewhere else doing it. But you have Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena, Rocky Pennington. Like, these are people who have just dedicated their damn careers to getting to the top of the division. Macy Chiasson is one of these people who is going to be ridiculed for not having the resume that speaks to somebody who deserves a title shot. They haven't been as active through the years. They haven't really put in their time. They've just kind of been able to get these rocket ship opponents. MBS at the time, that's a title, that's coming off the title shot. She got her and finished her. And then now she's still kind of lingering around, and she gets somebody who's coming off the title, a contender matchup, whatever you want to say. So Macy's getting kind of the leftovers. And I think that's going to be a main top talking point if she does get the title shot. Is like, well, she's 11-3. Like, who has she actually faced that is like worth saying she deserves to be in the championship spot? Because like when you look at people like Rocky Pennington, Amanda Nunes, and Juliana Pena, like I named, like those, the resume, they've been here for a while, racking up names left and right, losing to some, winning to some, but at least the resume speaks to why they deserve a shot at the end of the day, I think. So
Yeah, absolutely. And really, when you have that type of gridlock like you do at the top of these women's divisions, it really is all on the upcoming fighters to prove that they belong in that conversation. So it takes these wins, impressively and emphatically. So if Jason can come out here and do just that, then the conversation starts to shift and broaden a little bit to include her. That's what she's going to have to do. And same with on the Vieira side. I mean, like if she wants to maintain any relevance in that conversation now, especially with the backslide that she's been on, this is a do or die moment for her in a lot of respects. I mean, yeah, she's not going to drop completely out of the rankings, but the more that you start dropping down point by point, click by click, it starts to add up over time. And since there is such a lock at the top of the division, the rest of the conversation matters a lot less. You're trying to you're different. The pools are different. Like, you can be somewhere in the rankings. You can have a number. A lot of people can have a number. If you want to get into the elite status, you want to get to the top of the heap, that's going to take a lot more. And then once you're in there, it's going to be even harder to maintain a spot because of how good the people that are in there already are.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, this one's going to be very interesting. I'm pretty excited for this one. I think this one should have been on the main card along with some of the other few that we just talked about, because the fights that we're about to talk after, I think this one's better than those.
Same, yeah, absolutely, and I think that there are a lot more stakes. The way that we're talking about the placement on the card does not reflect that, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a prelim matchup, but we're talking about how this is a sleeper for a champion, like a title shot here in the next year or so. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
absolutely. We're gonna have to see if they end up shaking up the order of things like we had talked about last week. They no announcements on that or anything, but night of, we'll see if maybe some of these fights are ordered a little differently.
Don't worry, dude. Nunez is coming back for the 45 division. Kayla Harrison is going to challenge for the vacant belt. It's going to be easy for him.
Well, believe it when I see it, and nothing is out of the question when Amanda
Melissa
Nunes
Mullins would be the third ranked featherweight woman. Think about that. She could make 45.
Well, if they want to do it, I mean, we've been seeing lately, and I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but we've been seeing lately champions doing whatever the hell they want. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it gets a little annoying, in my opinion, that it's just like the organization says, "Oh, you're a big star. What would you like to do? What can we do for you, champ?" And it's when you say things like that, it's like, oh yeah, that could be a jokey conversation now. But if she decided that was exactly what she wanted to do, the organization rolls out the red carpet for her, and everybody else just has to fucking deal with it.
Yeah, I don't listen. It is funny in that regard that is the inevitable truth, but it is funny that it's possible enough that we could joke about it, but then also be like, don't joke too much. This is quite possible here, guys. So
I mean, it feels like a Wild West kind of time in that regard. So any which way,
it's a fun it's a fun era of the UFC, guys. I know it's stressful. Like, it is stressful for us to question if a division is going to be held up by one particular person, but man, does it make it more interesting. I tell you.
Side note, I do believe that the Strip John Jones petition has surpassed 80,000 signatures, I believe. So just throwing that
Mhm.
out there to add that to the mix. Anyway, moving on to our featured prelim fight here. This is Jafil Filio versus Alan Nascimento. Filio is 16-3, 2-1 in his stint in the UFC here. Wins over Daniel Bareth and Ode Osborne. Lost to Muhammad Mokaev. Knockout win on the Contender Series. Nascimento is 20-6, 2-1 in the UFC as well. Wins over Jake Hadley and Carlos Hernandez, both of which have been released from the UFC. His loss was to Tagir Ulanbekov. He lost on the Contender Series to Haulian Paiva, and then in his first fight in the organization, lost as well. So someone must like Alan Nascimento in the organization.
I mean, whatever all that is considering, I would like to just point out Alan Nascimento has 15 submissions to his name, never been subbed, never been finished. And I think that is key coming in here because he is the favorite and he is a shoot box guy, which looking at his picture, you would not say this guy's a shoot box guy, but that is what they say. I don't know if it's Charles Camp because it's not the Delima one, but this guy here might be a good pick because minus 170 being fairly close to the line for somebody who has 15 submissions. Now, I want to give context that somebody else who had a lot of submissions and turned out to be completely dog shit, Gabriel Miranda. So just keep that in mind if you think this dude's going to be your lock of the week. He may fucking fluke. I've seen it before with people who are just supposed to be that good on paper.
Well, and also, I might be mistaken about this, but I don't think I am. Isn't Filio also a shootbox guy, or he competed in at least a shootbox competition? He might not be from the gym, but he might have competed in their tournament or something like that. I thought I saw some shootbox stuff
Hmm.
on his resume there. Maybe I'm confusing him, but I thought I did. Either way, Filio, I believe, also has some submission wins of his own, so this could be a pretty spirited back and forth on the ground. I believe that he finished his last fight by submission. I want to say so.
Last two by four. Okay, so 4 out of his last 5 were finished by submission. He got subbed by Mokaev in one of those. The other 3 were submissions, and then he's got a knockout in one.
Right. Yeah, that would be the knockout on the Contender Series. So, yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
both these guys, submission artists, could be some high level grappling going on. What do you take away from that? I guess you're thinking that Nascimento might be better than the record would lead one to believe, or
Not that the record would. I mean, the record is not great. I mean, that's kind of similar to what Asmat Bekov's record was. Like, he wasn't necessarily a world beater, I don't believe, but like, I didn't take too much into consideration with the 6 losses. I mean, he is very credible when it comes to the sport. 15 submissions is pretty fucking nuts. I mean, to never be subbed and to sub that many people, I mean, you
well, I
must
think
be somewhat decent.
more of what I meant though, and sorry, I didn't really set that up
No, you're
hundred
fine.
percent correctly. I was just my thing was that like wins over Jake Hadley and Carlos Hernandez. We were just talking about how Carlos Hernandez was not of the caliber of the UFC. Jake Hadley, a dude who lost to Cameron Smotherman on short notice, and got pretty handily defeated by him, and then Smotherman didn't turn in a great performance in his last one. You know what I mean? What, like, to
I
me, that speaks a little bit, at least.
I mean, to go along with your point, if this would give any more context, is that his second loss, um, he actually only loses by unanimous decision, basically. And okay, there's some splits, but he loses by decision only. Never been finished. Ricardo Ramos, if you know who that guy is, he beat this dude in 2013 for a title shot. In Elite FC 5. So Ricardo Ramos is one of those dudes that's not really that great. So if this was the first dude that beat you, and that was before he even like honed in on his skills, kind of deal. I mean, they both were very young, so you probably can't take too much into consideration. But yeah, the people that you've beat and the people that you've lost to, I don't know. This one, I might just have to trust Vegas, but goddamn shootbox. Very, very hit or
Yeah, well,
miss.
I'm going with the dog on this one, and my reasoning is that Filio is like he's like a little chihuahua in there. You know, he's like really energetic, very, very quick. His movements are super fast, twitchy kind of deal with him. And I think that he might be able to just outpace Nascimento. That like based on the recollection that I have of some of his fights, like that you know he really like you know they're both flyweights obviously, but like you know there's more of like that standard version of a flyweight. I would say that Filio kind of fits that a little bit more than Nascimento. And I'm talking specifically about the speed when I'm referencing that. Like I think that you know that like high intensity, high output uh, prototype of a flyweight kind of applies more to Filio than it does to Nascimento, at least in my mind. So for that reason, I think that maybe Filio is just going to be able to catch him and be a little bit quicker, even if it is on the ground. It's like you know all of those small motions that we talk about when it comes to the grappling add up really quickly, and if Filio is able to enact a chain of events quicker than Nascimento can keep up with it in his mind, you know, in real time in his mind, then I think that there might be potential for Filio to pull off the submission here.
This one will be really fun, I think. Featured prelim bout. It may not be horrible because it is the flyweights. Like I said, I've always said this. These guys come they standard with every facet of the game. But considering these guys are good grapplers, I think this will be a lot of scrambles and a lot of them throwing each other up in the air like
Yeah,
ballerinas.
yeah, it could very
So
well be that. I would just say that you know the speed is going to be the deciding factor, at least in my mind. And as you said, Nascimento not been submitted yet. This could be the time that he meets his first one of those. That's where my head's at, anyway.
we will see. We
All
will
right,
see.
you're
Yeah,
gonna
I agree.
you're
This one will be
taking
interesting.
Actually, also, I don't did we even say who we're all taking in the last fight? Caitlin Vieira and Macy Chiasson. Did you make a
Well, we're
Okay,
thinking
we're both
Macy.
good. Okay, I just want to make sure we were both on the same page there. But you're taking Nascimento in this one?
I'm gonna take
All right, I'm going to
Nascimento.
go with Filio on this one. Give some love to the dog. And that takes us into the main card here.
Our 4-fight main
Yeah, for
card.
real. So Zachary Reese versus Dushko Todorovic. I did not do the breakdown for this one, but Zachary Reese is
Okay, I got
Zachary
you.
Reese is 8-2. Todorovic is 12-5. What can you give me the last five for Reese, and I'll do the last five for
Yeah,
Todorovic here.
yeah, yeah. So Zach Reese. I mean, the last five is not necessarily all you need to look at. I mean, actually, okay, he did actually fight a couple more times since the first thing I was going to bring up. The first thing that you need to note about Zachary Reese is that he was one of two slam knockouts on the night last year. Cody Brundage slammed his head into the mat and knocked him out. This was the first instance where you should note Zachary Reese may not be the smartest fighter. Okay. Then he comes back. He gets a knockout against Julian Marquez, excuse me, which is, I mean, Julian Marquez is a punching bag. So finishing him is not really the craziest thing in the world. Then you go up against Jose Medina. We know this guy to be a punching bag, but he doesn't finish him, which is pretty sad knowing that Medina can be finished now that we see. At the time, he wasn't somebody who could be finished, so it wasn't that big of a thing. But now that we know for sure he can be flatlined, this was a stain here. Then you come into the matchup with Asmat Bekov. This is a short notice bout for Bekov. He's coming in from another promotion, a two-division champion, I believe it was. And there was not much hype coming in for this guy because when people come into the organization from other promotions and they've been dominating, there's always a little slight to their name. Like, are they good enough to compete with the mid-level talent? Zachary Reese is one of these dudes. He gets a lot of finishes. If he's going to fight, he's going to finish. So I thought this was going to be a good opportunity for a short notice opponent to come in and get stomped out by Zachary Reese. Zach Reese gets taken down almost immediately and flatlined from the ground and pound in round one. Now, what I have outlined, would this give you more or less hope going into this fight? Probably less. But in my book here, I think Zachary Reese will go ahead and finish Mr. Todorovic.
All right. Well, I mean, you saw I had all of Zachary Reese's record up there for a second. I just run through it very quickly here. Yeah, lost to Bekoev, a win over Medina, win over Marquez. That lost to Brundage, as you had mentioned, the slam knockout, and then a win over Eli Aronoff on the Contender Series. And on Todorovic's side, he is coming off of 2 losses, one to Malik Abdul Malik, Mansour, excuse me, Mansour Abdul
Mansoor.
Malik, and then one to Chris Duncan. Win over that's Jordan Wright, and a loss to Chidi and Jukwani, and a win over Maki Patolo. So, all of that being said, I mean, so you're thinking that you said that Reese is going to be able to finish Todorovic. That's the assessment.
Well, if you look at the people that Dusko has been up against, he's a finish or be finished type of dude. So he's going to go in there and slug. Zachary Reese is one of these guys that is just a freak athlete. Like, I mean, look at that. He's 6'4". He's got length. He's got the athleticism. He just doesn't have necessarily the wits when it comes to this. But I think this is going to be an old school slugfest. This dude's just going to stand in front of you and get beat on. That's what he does. Mansoor doesn't do anything special, just throws fucking meaty hooks. Christian Leroy Duncan does do things special, but he's also just beating you to a pulp. He's not grappling with you. He's not changing anything up. You're standing in front of each other, and you're going to see who's going to, throw hands. Chidi and Jakwani is another example. He's just going to clinch you up, bust you with elbows, get into your personal space, and make it ugly. Zachary Reese is not necessarily like any of those, but he does have the finishing ability that is replicant of some of those. Like, he can go out here and put on a performance that can finish people. He's a good striker. He's good off his back when he's not getting flatlined by Asmat Bekov and thrown on his head by Cody Brundage. But hopefully we don't need to see that happen. I'm hoping Zachary Reese gets a finish in this fight, because Zachary Reese, the Savage, could be one of these guys to look out for if he finally strings it together. But Cody Brundage lost.
Well, and that would, I think that the counter kind of piggybacks off of one of the things you said in there, and just that I think both of these guys are kind of like lacking in fight IQ to an extent. You know what I mean? I think that there's a reason that Todorovic is like a killer be killed kind of guy. It's because I think he's a little bit too wild for his own good. Sometimes it works out in his favor, sometimes it doesn't. Reese ends up in situations that he probably shouldn't let himself get into. That goes unfavorably for him. If it's going to just be hands versus hands, this could be a lot more even than the odds are making it out to be. Of course, Reese is a heavy favorite in this one as a minus 260. Todorovic is a plus 210. I would think that this probably should be a little bit more even than it is. If the technicality can come through on either side, then that might be the big decision maker. Can anybody evolve in this sport, really? Like, that's I feel like we have these preconceived notions of these, not preconceived, no, we have these notions of these fighters based on what we have seen from them, and it's like there are more facets that you can apply to the base that you've created for yourself. Can either of these guys do that? It would be nice to think that they could. I think that of the two, Reese probably has the better foundation to be able to do that. You know, I do think that there are flecks of the right things in there already. Todorovic maybe a little bit more headstrong, probably going to lean back on the base that he's comfortable with and not as teachable, perhaps. You know, that's a little speculation, but I think that it's informed to an extent. So it's like with those factors in there, maybe Reese just comes out in a better form of himself. Like, that's something that I think could be entirely possible.
I think with everything that we've laid out on the table, I think it's very evenly matched up when you have two dudes in the cage, these two dudes specifically, and you're looking at the skill sets. Neither one of them is like overly becoming the favorite in that outlook. In that regard, the only thing that I'm thinking about, because of how even it looks in that context, is that Zachary Reese is bigger, longer, and he's athletic as hell. Like, when you see him fight, like the things that he does, like he's got the movements, like he can make it look right, but can he put it together to make it actually happen? We said it earlier with the first fights of the night. You got Alice and Dos Santos. It's like, you can look good, but you have to produce. Like, it doesn't matter what's happening, you have to produce the wins for us to buy into it. And this is just the perfect opportunity for Zach Reese to get a finish and make us, like, they clearly the promotion is clearly having some sort of push with Zachary Reese. If you look at his record, he's somebody who came in very, very early in his career. They knew he was somebody that they need in the promotion. Now they can't let him skate by. He was supposed to smoke Azmat. Now we got Dusko, who's been knocked out, sometimes gets a knockout. Zachary Reese, this should be a punching bag for you. I think you got
Yeah,
this.
I'm giving Todorovic a little bit more credit, I think, than what the record is reflecting, perhaps. And it might be just because he is that like head first sort of into the fire kind of guy. So maybe he's able to overwhelm Reese. This is going to be a good like test of if Reese can utilize the technicality a little bit more strategically. I would say, like, can he be a little bit
Mm,
more of a like a composed chess player in this regard, and recognize where the openings are, as opposed to just playing the game that Todorovic is going to be wanting to play. Like, if you play into Todorovic's hands, then there is potential for him to do what he is good at, because he does have times where that works for him pretty well. So I mean, I think that's what I'm saying about Reese, like coming in a different form of himself. Like, is there going to be that advancement that you want to see? I mean, both of them are only 31, so I mean, it's only, I say. I mean, yeah, that is starting to get right there in the sweet spot. So it's like right now should be the time that both of them are like where they want to be as far as like their evolution goes. But if Reese comes in a little bit more technical, plays it a little bit smarter, who's going to have the better fight IQ? And I would say that Reese probably will
yeah.
end up having that. Can Todorovic end up getting something lucky, or just using his sheer will to win in order to get the job done? I think that's also entirely possible, actually.
Yeah, you remember, in any case, in a slug fight, in a slug fest, anybody can get caught. So remember, keeping that in mind is that this is not 100% sold that if Zachary Reese gets to stand with Dusko, that it's going to go his way, because he may get clipped. I mean, it's very possible. We'll actually talk about it in the next fight. Somebody who has had the ability to just get that one shot off. So I think this one will be interesting. I think Mr. Zachary Reese gets it
True.
done though.
Yeah. I mean, guts telling me that again, I always have that like pick the dog, pick the dog. So it's like I'm getting that nagging feeling to pick the dog. I'm not super confident in it, but just for the sake of it, yeah.
I'm telling you, hold off on your dog wanting ways. The next fight is the dog. I
All right,
got you.
fair enough. Well,
I
I'll
got
still
you.
I'll still go with Todorovic just to make it interesting. I guess I'm not super confident in it.
Okay,
But all right, let's move on to the next one. This
gotcha.
is Dustin Jacoby versus Bruno Lopez. Dustin Jacoby is 20-9. He is 2-3 in his last 5 wins over Vitor Petrino, Kennedy, and Chezuku. Both of those were by knockout. Losses to Dominic Reyes, Alonzo Menefield, and Azamat Mirzakhanov. Lopez is 14-1, one win in the UFC over Magomed Gaziusulov, lost on the Contender Series to Brenson Ribeiro, returned to LFA where he was from, won the title there, got a knockout win on the Contender Series. Into the organization he goes after that.
I think this is a great dog for the slip, and I want to tell you why. Because Dustin Jacoby coming in as the favorite, I mean, is he somebody that you should have high hopes for? Being 20-9, I mean, he's been around the block. Yes, he is very experienced, but he has also lost to people that you would not necessarily like. Okay, so the wins. Knocked out Vitor Petrino. Okay, that's good. That's probably why he would be the favorite. He also beat Kennedy, who's looking very good at heavyweight, not necessarily the form of Kennedy that we should have seen at that time. So it's not necessarily the best win since it wasn't the best version of Kennedy. But then when you look at the losses, lost to Alonzo Menefield by unanimous decision. Ouch. Ouch, brother. And then you get knocked out by Dominic Reyes on the return. I think in that moment, I mean, now we're seeing Dominic Reyes on like a resurgence, but in that moment, Dustin Jacoby should not have been the person that starts that reignition to like this is somebody who's coming off of like retirement basically, and you were the one that he got his entry back into the limelight with. So I think Dustin Jacoby has lost in ways that he shouldn't have, and the wins don't necessarily give me. I could still figure out ways to make him seem not as impressive. Now, maybe that's wrong of me, but I will say Bruno Lopez came in last fight as a dog too. Keep that in mind. Gadju Zulov was undefeated at the time, and he was supposed to point our boy Bruno Lopez to decision. And if I am correct in my memory, Bruno Lopez said, "Fuck that. We are going to grapple and wrestle against the cage the entire time." He did not let the opportunity pass him to steal a dub against somebody who he knew wanted to play his game. And yes, Bruno Lopez had a lot of flack for the performance, for it being boring and him not doing anything. And yes, but he had the game plan to win that night. And I think that is what's key going into this. And this is going to be free money that Vegas is trying to dangle in front of your face again. He could come in here and put on a performance that makes you say, fuck, Dustin Jacoby was just not as good as I thought he was once he knocked out Vitor Petrino. Like, I don't know. I could just see Bruno Lopez doing exactly what he did with Gadju Zulov. Not in the sense that he's going to wrestle him and hold him, but he's going to pull out the game plan that you don't want to see, but that's going to win. And I think this is a great dog.
I'm going with the line of thinking as well. I mean, we've seen Brenton Ribeiro go on to excel in after a little bit of rockiness, but I mean, he was one that I think sort of ended up in that position that people were kind of doubting him because of that rockiness, but then ended up overcoming that and looking pretty good. So, you know, not beating him on the Contender Series, even though now he has gone on to better things, that sort of ages well in the grand scheme of things now. Lopez also going back to LFA and just easily claiming a title there on his return to the lower ranks kind of speaks decently high in my opinion. I mean, you know, he could have gone back to LFA and then middled there. You know, it's like, oh, okay, you know, challenge for a title, couldn't get the title in there, couldn't make it in the UFC. Where's the worth at there? But he didn't let that happen. So, yeah. I mean, being able to overcome that in and of itself shows that there is a grit and determination to the guy. Jacoby is one of those dudes that he's like another fighter that's just sort of swirls around in the conversation. You know what I mean? Like he's there, he gets the wins every once in a while. You know, the power is definitely there for him against the right people if he's able to get those shots off. Can he be maneuvered around? Can he fall into the traps of certain fighters? Definitely so. So, you know, I think that there are openings in Jacoby's game that if Lopez has the fight IQ to be able to exploit those, there should be some pretty decent advantages for him to turn this thing in his direction.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be easy for Bruno, because not easy in the sense that like I'm just writing off Dustin Jacoby, but I think the game plan that Bruno will implement is going to be so we're going to get boos for sure. But I think it's going to be what wins him the fight at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'll go with it. I mean, I think that Lopez did look really, really good against Gadju Zulov. I mean, that was a standout fight of the evening, actually. I remember, you know, it was the only thing that was missing was finishing, right? I mean, that went to unanimous decision, I believe. But unanimous decision nevertheless. So, you know, he stole that victory away when he was the dog in that situation and certainly can pull that off again.
On short notice, I believe too. I think
that might have been. Yeah, it could have been. I mean, either which way with it, getting the win there, finally solidifying that yes, you are of the caliber that you need to be in the organization proper. You know, sometimes it's a rockier road to get in there, but that path makes the fighter better. I mean, you know, we were just talking about people improving their skills and getting themselves to the condition that they need to be in order to be effective. Maybe that is exactly what it took for Lopez, and we're seeing the fruits of the labor right here, right now. So if he can get this win over Jacoby, it's going to speak pretty loudly towards that mentality or that thought process, at least. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect last leg to the parlay right here. And then you have plenty for these next two fights that we're about to
go over. So, yeah, I guess then final prediction is Lopez taking this fight.
Taking Bruno Lopez by whatever way he wants.
All right, fair enough. I think that decision will probably be likely. Now, you know, don't think that it's impossible for Jacoby to land a power shot that does catch him off guard, though, because I mean, after watching that was Lopez, or excuse me, Jacoby and the fight that he with Petrino. Yeah, with Petrino. I saw that one live, and that's you know, it was definitely going both ways for a little while there. I mean, it wasn't like completely a totally one-sided affair for Jacoby, but he was able to string the shots together when it counted. Was a little bit later in the fight, if I recall. So, if it starts going into later rounds and Lopez does get a little gassed out, there could be a late round knockout. I wouldn't count that out altogether because Jacoby does have consistent power even in the later rounds. So, keep that in the back of your mind. But based on what we have seen already, going off of the data, I think that Lopez can get the job done.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, moving into the current co-main, I mean, I guess this would be the time that we probably would want to talk about Goff and Brahimaj. Do you want to do that real quick, just in case it is on this card?
I think we should talk about it, but there's not necessarily much that I want to say. Brahimaj came out and finished Mickey Gall, which sure doesn't really speak too much to what I would want to see coming forward. I mean, that yes, finish the dude that deserves to be finished, the dude that's not very great as of right now, who's older, who had one little lasting moment of beating, CM Punk, whatever you want to say. And what's the other one? Nate Sage Northcutt. Brahimaj and Billy Goff, I'm just hoping for a finish. I mean, you got two dudes that weren't even supposed to fight each other that said, fuck it, we will fight each other. Make it seem like you wanted to fight each other for a reason. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, for me, I mean, Brahimaj has done enough in his time that I've seen him to be like, okay, that dude has the fundamentals. He has enough of the skills. He's done enough to make at least a lasting impression in my mind. Like, yeah, that dude can win fights. Goff, on the other hand, I don't think has done that just yet. Like, there's not any one performance or one standout moment that immediately springs to mind when I hear the name. Like, I'm sure that there is something somebody's, in the comments could be like, yeah, well, what about this? It's like, yeah, I'm sure that happened. It's what I retain, and make it something that will be indelible in my memory, and then the conversation changes a whole lot. So that's what I'm hoping for in this fight, is that somebody pulls off something that makes me say, okay, one of these guys has now graduated to a class where they are not forgettable in the slightest,
The same intensity that Brahimaj had after he finished Mickey Gall, I want to see him start the fight with that exact same energy, because I think he does have, when he won that fight, you could see the intensity coming off him. Like, this was the moment that he wanted the most right now, and I want to hope that they come into this fight and they finish each other. I don't care how it happens. I don't care who does it. I would just hope you guys show that you wanted this fight to happen for a reason.
Same. So yeah, I mean, at least based on the evidence that I have already, I think that Brahimaj is the dog. I want to say in that fight. Could be another good dog there. My gut again, it just again strictly off of what I have at least in the memory bank. I'll go with Brahimaj.
I agree. I'm going with
All
him as
right,
well.
so back to the card that we know to exist and the fights that we know to exist. Mateusz Gamrot versus Ludovic Klein, your co-main event here. Gamrot is 24-3, 3-2 in his last 5, wins over Rafael dos Anjos, Rafael Fiziev, and Jalen Turner. Losses to Dan Hooker and Beneil Dariush. Klein is 23-4. 4-0-1 in his last 5 due to a draw with Jai Herbert. His wins are over Roosevelt Roberts, Thiago Moises, AJ Cunningham, and Ignacio Bahamundes. That obviously ages pretty well.
I still like, okay, so let me start out by saying that Gamrot, when you look at his record, especially the last 5, it is hard to build a story based on that, because when you look at his wins, Rafael Fiziev got injured. When you look at his losses, Dan Hooker did not beat him. I think these are key to note, because Gamrot, he's one of those guys that the story is just always going to be, you're always going to be able to pull it in different directions. Because if I'm not mistaken, he has a couple different split decision wins. Maybe, yeah, split decision loss, yeah, split decision wins, a couple unanimous, but like, I don't know. And he did beat Arman Sarukian by unanimous decision, by the way, for 5 rounds. So I think the gamer is somebody that I'm interested in, just because I've seen people ridicule him for the skill set that he has, and then they will watch him beat Dan Hooker and then still tell you that he's not good. So I just think it's very interesting to me that the gamer. He can't get any respect in here. But then you have somebody who got submitted by a guy who's not necessarily the greatest in Nate the Train Landwell. I think it is just very interesting to note that Ludovic Klein could get finished by somebody who's meme material, and then Gamrot, who's somebody who's certified like top contender, just can't even catch a break. Like he's just there's no opportunity for him in the public's eye. I don't know.
Well, based on these last 5 on both sides, it would lead me to believe that there might be slight decision merchanty territory for both of these guys when it comes to the higher levels of the sport. And they're both sort of in that camp. So I think that the matchmaking is actually pretty decent on this one. I mean, Klein is a dude who we've spoken pretty highly of in the past. He's gotten some good wins. Obviously, on a 4-fight win streak. That all the Jai Herbert draw was before all of those wins. So I mean, he is riding a pretty good wave right now. And again, a win over Ignacio Bahamundes does speak pretty highly considering how good he has looked lately. But it's a lot of decision territory there. Gamrot had the wonky win over Fiziev. Like the information is skewed. It's exactly like you said. The win over or the loss to Hooker, that in a lot of people's eyes should have been a win. You're weighing the scales in a different way based on like the actual activity in the fights versus what's on paper. So how do you square all of that away? I mean, Gamrot has fought some pretty high level talent to go to all of those decisions, to have all of that wonkiness happen. So one way or another, at least he's been in there with dudes who are at the top of the heap, or at least closer to the top than Klein has. Will the experience be the thing that can trump it? Will it the power? And I remember because I remember during our conversation about the Hooker fight with Gamrot, I had said that I liked that he had power, and you were like, oh, I think that that's the one thing that he's lacking. And I think what I was getting at there with him is that he has muscle around power. Like he doesn't necessarily have power in his hands, but he has the ability to control where you are in positionally speaking. Like, I mean, like he will get you to the cage if he wants you on the cage. He'll get you to the ground if he wants you on the ground. Will Klein be able to overcome that? I think is going to be a big, big question here because Gamrot does throw his weight around effectively.
I think what is also to note is that Gamrot, like we said, he's been around here. He's beat the guys who are still at the top of the division. And he's went distances with these guys. It's not like he's never had a 5-round fight. I know this isn't a 5-round fight. It's only 3, and maybe that'll be his detriment is that he gets going a little slower. But in my opinion, he did the exact right thing against Dan Hooker. He won that fight, in my opinion. So I have no reason to believe that he won't come out the gates just as hot that he did against Dan Hooker. And I think be another reason why Gamrot, when you look at the people that he's faced compared to the people that Ludovic has faced, these are people who are maybe still upcoming or fucking people like Roosevelt Roberts. So Gamrot actually is beating people that have name value to them, people that are still around making themselves relevant. I'm trying to like Fiziev, that was somebody who he beat at the time and is still like on his way up. But then he beats Arman at the time as somebody who's at the top. I don't know. Dan Hooker is still at the top. Ludovic Klein is beating people who are just stepping stone type of material. This is his real true test at the top of the division. And I think Gamrot has just had way too many of those tests. And I think he'll be fine. Nothing he hasn't seen before.
I would agree. I mean, I think that, and of course, Gamrot is the favorite in this fight as a minus 175. Klein is a plus 145. So close-ish line there. But I think that Gamrot, the experience will trump anything that Klein is going to be bringing to the table, I would suspect, based on the fact that both these guys do generally go into the later rounds at the very least. I would probably, if you're going for the betting perspective, I would probably just take this thing to not finish inside of the distance. I think that this fight will go the distance. But that being said, yeah, I think that Gamrot getting a unanimous decision or possibly a split, but I mean, because Klein's not, Klein's good. I mean, like, I don't want to like really try to take
Mhm.
away from the fact that he is like a pretty like well-rounded fighter. Is good instincts as well. I mean, like he knows what to do, when to do it. But I just think that the abilities of Gamrot are also like that, but a little bit better. So yeah, I think that Gamrot by decision is the right way to go.
I agree. I'm going with the gamer, guys.
There you go. All right, fair enough. And to round this thing out, our main event, Aaron Blanchfield versus Macy Barber. Blanchfield is 13-2, 4-1 in her last 5. Wins over Rose Namajunas, Tyla Santos, Jessica Andrade, and Molly McCann. Her loss was to Manon Fiorot, who of course just challenged for the belt. Macy Barber is 5-0 in her last 5, wins over Caitlin Serminara or Caitlin Chikakian, Amanda Hebos, Andrea Lee, Jessica I, and Montana De La Rosa. That De La Rosa win was quite a long time ago. Barber has some long stretches of inactivity, even though she is still relatively young. So factor that in however you will. She has been off for quite a long while coming into this fight.
I agree that Macy is not the most active person, and that may be to her detriment coming into this. I originally, like off the bat, I said, okay, this matchup here, I take Aaron. Like I think Aaron should have the grappling to back up. I mean, she's decent enough on the feet that it'll be close, but the grappling is where she should shine. And then I looked into Aaron Blanchfield's record, and I found out something very interesting. In her fourth pro MMA fight, she lost to Tracy Cortez. And I think that is very interesting to note because Tracy Cortez is not necessarily the greatest. We know her to be a little more mid than she is fantastic. So I think that is questionable on Aaron's side. If you lose to Tracy Cortez, it was split, could have went either way. But in Aaron's case, for what I thought of her to be, I figured Tracy Cortez probably would not have been somebody that would take you 3 rounds to decision. That's just my opinion. So I'm hoping Aaron is able to get that notion out of my head. It was her 4th pro MMA fight. She's had a long stretch since then, so it shouldn't matter. But I'm really hoping that I don't regret picking Aaron and saying she fucking lost to Tracy Cortez, and this is exactly, I could see why she would lose to somebody who's not necessarily as good as she fights like that. Something like that along the lines.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that that's going to be the case though, because I think that Blanchfield, being only 26 now, very early in her career. I mean, I guess it is 4th fight in, so you should, you could say, yeah, that is where you should probably have your ducks in a row. But
Mm,
I think that she is somebody who has made massive improvements over time and gotten herself into a much better form over her time in the sport. Barber has just been pretty well on a tear, except for the stints of inactivity, a couple injuries and stuff in there as well. But she's just been consistently pretty high level throughout like a lot of her run. So this,
mhm.
the line to me is very crazy on this one, being Blanchfield such a heavy favorite as -250 and Barbara as a +200. I think that they're thinking that Blanchfield's just going to wrestle her throughout the entire thing, try to grapple
Mhm.
and get it to the ground, which is certainly a possibility. And I do think that Barber is going to have to come up with some really big answers to the level changes that Blanchfield is going to attempt. But if she's able to do that, if in the first round or two, if Barber is stuffing takedowns left and right and landing the shots when she can throughout all of that, like in those sequences, then it's going to be able to throw Blanchfield off of her game because that's basically what happened with Manon Fiorot. And obviously, Manon
Mhm.
ended up going on to challenge. So I think that there is potential for a similar fight to happen here with Barber being able to plant her base, do the wide sprawl, do whatever she needs to do to get herself out of the grappling situations that Blanchfield's going to bring to the table. And if that happens early on in this 5-round fight, Blanchfield might start getting desperate for answers that just aren't there.
I think what's key to note the difference between Macy and Manon is when Manon is fighting a grappler, and fighting anybody for that matter, is There is no wrestling. That is not an option. You stay on the feet, you sprawl, and you pop them up with the jab. Striking is where you are going to win this fight. Macy, on the other hand, I don't feel like she has the instinct to just stuff a takedown, stand them back up. Let's go back to the feet. I feel like if the takedown comes, she's going to initiate thinking, this is grappling. I'm decent enough that I can maneuver around it. Like when I look at these two right here, I do think of very similar skill sets. Like these two are very carbon copies to me. They do look alike also. They're just two very, thicker, white, short women, whatever you want to say. I think this one will be a lot more of a grappling match than we expect Macy to keep it on the feet. These girls love to grapple. They love to wrestle. That's just what I think I'll see out of it.
All right. I mean, perhaps maybe I'm giving too much credit to Barber's stand-up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of decisions on there. So, I guess TKO over Amanda Hebos. Let that color your judgments however you will. But I don't know. In my mind, maybe I'm misremembering. I just think that I thought I'd seen Barber throw hands a little bit more so in the past.
She does have some pretty decent hands. She does have some pretty decent hands, but I think it's not necessarily any like something that she'll. It's not the only option in her book. She believes in her grappling enough to initiate in the sequences, not Manon having to forcefully disengage out of every grappling sequence because striking is where she's gonna thrive.
Sure. So I mean, so if that's the case, then I mean, do you think then she'll have the wherewithal to recognize early on if she allows the grappling to be the method for a little while, like will she have the understanding that if it's not working against Blanchfield, who is pretty credentialed in that regard, that now I need to pivot to my striking? Like, do you think that that's a possibility for her, and does she have success in doing that transition?
What I'm thinking happens is that Macy makes a grave miscalculation with the wrestling and decides to grapple. And then she's on the mat a lot longer than she probably would have wanted to be. I'm not saying she's going to gas, but I think Aaron will find the situation to end the fight.
All right.
I think she'll get a submission.
Fair. It's certainly possible. It would be, a pretty big undertaking and a big statement if she's able to do that against Barber, who is perfect in her last five. So, I'm not opposed to it because I always thought that Blanchfield had the flex, like the early makings of a potential title contender. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like 100% there yet. You know what I mean? It was like still kind of formulating and getting itself ready and all that kind of stuff. Barber, on the other hand, always struck me as kind of like a little bit of a chip on the shoulder is how I've always sort of looked at her. I think that she's got a little bit of an attitude, not in a bad way. I mean, not like she's
Mm-hmm.
not a bitch or anything, but like, that she's kind of comes in with a little bit more of like, I'm going to be the one that's going to be able to figure this out, and I'm going to get this win however I have to. Is sort of the impression that I got of her, where Blanchfield seems a little bit more composed and someone who's like methodical, going to be leaning more on her technicality.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that there might be a little bit of potential for Barber to kind of big sister her to an extent. But if Blanchfield can just stay the course and make that wrestling count, get her to the ground and let the grappling speak for itself, then there is potential for her to get a submission. I'm still, again, the gut is telling me to go with Barber for, whatever the reason may be, whether it's the thought that the hands might be there more than I was anticipating or more than I'm remembering. I could be misremembering certain facts about her. I'll fully admit that, but I just think that the record speaks volumes, and that Blanchfield was able to get maneuvered by Furo also kind of sticks out in my mind. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right way to think about it.
Right. No, I hear you. Yeah, I think this one will be very interesting. I know people want to talk about this being the main event of the card, but it should be decent. It should be fine.
Not too satisfied with this as a main event.
No, this one should be fine. This one will be okay. I mean, if all else, we're going to get 5 rounds of women wrestling with each other. So I don't think I could be mad at it.
Yeah, worst ways to spend a Saturday night for sure. All right, well, I mean, and
Yep.
that will close us out as far as UFC Fight Night Blanchfield versus Barber goes. A little bit sleepy on the chat side today, so I mean, we were going to do a Q&A, but not too much doing there. Anything else you wanted to talk about today, Chase?
No, I mean tomorrow. I know tomorrow you said you're going to be doing a watch along with the fights that were happening over the weekend. You and Vitz, so I'm excited to hear what you guys got to say on that. Make sure that everybody is going ahead and getting to the channel to watch that tomorrow.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. Yeah, so if you are, excuse me, if you're curious about how the commentary went with myself and the Vitz King at Real Cage Fighting in Tampa Bay, you are more than welcome to come on to the channel tomorrow to see a full rewatch of the event. I promise, even if you are not enjoying the commentary, you'll certainly enjoy the fights, and vice versa. I would say, there's definitely something for everybody there because it was a very good card, in my opinion, and we had a lot of fun on the commentary. So we haven't fully locked in exactly what the plan is for that just yet because it is a 4-hour event. So I don't know if we're going to be doing all of it or if we're going to be selectively jumping around a little bit. We'll play that one by ear. I'll talk to the Vitz King tomorrow and see what we want to do. But sometime tomorrow evening, keep your eyes peeled for your notifications because we will be live going over some of that and playing some of the footage for you so you can see how that all went.
There's one last thing that I wanted to note, and I don't want this to ruin your Tuesday night plans, but the first episode of Tough airs tomorrow.
Oh
So
God, does
there's
it
that as
really?
well.
Oh Jesus! Oh
I
man,
didn't
well
know that
that
until earlier. I know. So
oh
I'm gonna
that
have to figure
certainly
out
does
when I'm
change
gonna do
things.
the rewatch of those ones. So
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, that actually throws a pretty big wrench into things because I did want to do some tough watching. Oh man. Thanks for reminding me about that. For everybody, Audible, Audible on the play.
yeah.
Um, yeah, we'll have to see what we're gonna do for that then. So you're not doing it live. You're not gonna be watching live.
I will not be doing it live. We'll be at work. I may come home and watch it, or I may do it the following morning. Not too sure. Not too sure.
True.
Excuse me.
All right. We might. Let me see what's going to happen with that. Just keep your eyes on the channel because I'll talk to Vitz and see what we can do about the rewatch. But I was possibly trying to do do the watch alongs of tough this go around at the very least. Chase and I'm sure will be talking about it on the show for recaps and things like that. So keep an eye on both channels to see the coverage that we'll be doing of tough, and we'll have more information for you tomorrow on all of that.
Hell yeah.
All right. In the meantime, you can find me at youtube.com/@Yama Show, Yama Show on Instagram and on Twitter. And Chase, I know you can tell them where they can find you for all your stuff.
Everybody, you can find me on youtube.com/@CPSmalls, and you will find predictions for every UFC card that is upcoming, excluding maybe this one. Just kidding. And then we will also be playing around on Twitter, having fun with everybody on x.com/creativepartin, PARTIN.
Make sure you follow my boy. New video is out on the Yama channel right now about Chael Sonnen and the hallway incident. That's been doing pretty well. Give that one a watch and a like if you enjoy it. And of course, we will both be live for our watch alongs on Saturday as well. So, one way or another, on Yama, we'll be back tomorrow, whether it's for Tough or for the rewatch of the Real Cage Fighting event. So, we'll see you then. And either way, in the meantime, everybody, fight on.